Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, boys and girls. Let's go with the lab. Today is IPv4 IPv6 LAB 2. You can go to the website that I provided before and download the packet tracer file. We're going to build this lab in GNS3 later on. Hopefully, it will be an easy lab and we will not encounter too much problems. Let's go ahead and start with the packet tracer version first. So this is actually a routing and switching lab. It shouldn't be that difficult. It's mainly focusing in routing, what we are doing here. Just follow along the instructions and we should be okay. So once you download the Packet Tracer Lab, we are going to click in the initial option. Okay, let me just close this. We need to wait patiently a couple of seconds so the lab will load the information that is previously configured. Now there is something that we need to correct here. We are going to delete these two. We don't need them. And voila. So let's start working on this. So the first thing we do is validate that the switches are turned on, the routers. Keep saying switches, but these are actually routers, layer 3 devices. So we're going to start doing step by step all of the tasks required for this lab. Let's start working on them. So the first thing that we need to do is go to the instructions. Configure IPv4 and IPv6 connectivity between two routers for IPv4 use. Is /28 network from 192 and 168 from the 192.168.180.0/24 private range. For IPv6, we use the first /64 subnet from the 2001:0 DBA://////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////////// using the Ethernet 0/0. In this case, it will be the gigabit Ethernet, gigabit 0/1. This one is 0/1, and this one is gigabit Ethernet. See the difference is there. On router 1 and router 2, configure the next usable /24 from 192 and 168, that 180.0/24 range. The network 192 and 168, that 180.0/28 is unavailable. Okay, so let's start doing the first step. First thing that we do is, in fact, enable IPv6 unicast routing in both of the routers. So we go to the first router, enable, config T, IPv6, unicast routing, and that's the first thing we do in both routers. Let's go to router 2. We have to be careful because we're running router 1 and router 2. We don't want to mix up the configuration. Enable, config T. All right, what is next? IPv6, unicast routing, and there you go. Now we have successfully configured IPv6 unicast routing. Now we need to configure the IPv4 addresses on both devices. So let's go with that. Carefully, we are going to select router 1, interface, gigabit 0/1, IP add. We're going to add the IP address, just in case, to cover our backs, 192 and 168. That 17 space 255.240. Enter. Now there is a problem and we need to figure out what are we doing here incorrectly. So let's do some research here. Am I missing something? Okay, yes, there is an octet that I forgot to add. It's 180. So with the arrow key, we're repeating the command and we're adding 180. Now we should be all good. IPv6 enable. They're clicking enter, IPv6 address. Okay, 2001 column. DV8, column, ACCA, column, only one, and then number 1/64. Now, there is an error. Looks like we are missing something. IPv6, we are adding the address. What are we missing here, guys? Can you think of something? There is a column that we're missing here. Now we are good. No shutdown is the next command that we're executing. Now it's up, end, and then WR. Remember, this is the same one as copy running config, startup config. That is exactly the same command. We are pretty much done with router 1. We configure the IPv4 address. We configure the first IPv6 address, and that is basically everything that we need to configure here. Now we need to move along to router 2 and add the following configurations. Following along with the task, it says to configure the first usable address IPv4 for router 1, per last usable address. We will do that very, very soon in router 2. And the IPv6, we need to use the second IPv6 available address for router 2. Then we have to do a ping connectivity test between router 1 and router 2. So let's work along with that. We are finished with the first step, which is configuring, in fact, router 1. So let's just minimize router 1 for now. Let's go ahead and move the screen here so we can have a better view. And let's start working along to complete all the configurations in router 2. Interface gigabit 0/1. Okay, we have the IPv6 unicast routing previously configured. It's very important in order for IPv6 to work correctly. This command is very important, it's essential. Okay, after gigabit 0/1, we have to do IP address 192.168.180. And then 30 is the last usable IP address in this network. We have to do 255.255.240. Same mask as before. We are using only one network. Okay, that is only one subnet that we are using here. IPv6 enable is the next command that we need to configure here. Now, IPv6 address 2001, column, DV8, column, ACCA, columns 2/64. After clicking enter, we have to do a not shutdown here, not shutdown. Remember the T, it's very important. End. We do a WR there, then just to cover a box, copy running config, startup config. And if we do show IP interface brief, we can see the IPv4. What about show IPv6 interface brief? Will that be available? Let's give it a try. There you go. You can see actually in router 2, the IPv6 address and the IPv4 address. Let's complete the connectivity test. Let's send a ping to the 192.168.180.17. Should be working. There you go. Now let's send a ping to the IPv6 address, which will be this one. We can just copy and paste it from here. Let me just copy here. We are in router 2. Let me paste it there. And there you go. Amazing. So we validated connectivity between the routers, and we have successfully completed the configuration on router 1 and router 2. Now, what we are going to do is open GNS3 and follow along the same configuration and the same lab. That's basically the idea of what we're trying to accomplish today here. So we are done with the lab. You can actually close, save for now, save the packet tracer file, then close it, and we should be all good. I'm going to save all these configurations in the program that we are working along for this week. Where are you, buddy? There you go, packet tracer labs. Now, let's build it. Let's go ahead and build this lab. We are going to have a router 1 and a router 2. Hopefully, we will find an image that we'll have available the Ethernet 0/1 interface for both routers. So let's start looking for that right now. It might take a couple of minutes or seconds, so GNS3 will load. Okay, so let me just open any file like this. I think the untitled one was a very, very similar option. In fact, if this one is correct, we may only need to change the IP address on this lab. Let me just double check. It's taking a little bit of time because the virtual machine has to load. So we have to make sure this one loads. It takes a couple of minutes or seconds. Let me close this one. Let us wait patiently for this one to load. In the meantime, I'm going to open the project one more time. Hopefully this time it will work. Okay, it's at 75%. It's actually loading. Let's go ahead and validate something. Okay, so this one has fast Ethernet. We're going to create a new topology, a brand new project, and we're going to name it as follows. So remember the website. We are going to give it this name, the lab 2. Let's go to GNS3 and save it like this and click OK. Now we need to find an image, hopefully that has, let's try with this one. Let's try with this image. The Ethernet option, Ethernet, this one doesn't really have it. I don't see it. Let me try with other one. Okay. What about this body? So gigabit. Okay, I'll keep on trying, but if we don't find one, we're going to just use gigabit because I don't want to lose all day trying to figure out this one. No, I think it doesn't really exist anywhere. I mean, I'm trying everywhere, but from all of the images we have tried so far, no one has that connection. No. Let's go ahead and do the following, guys, boys and girls. Let's go ahead and use any of those images. Let's use this one, for example. Okay, and let's see if it have it there. There you go. Now this one have it. So it's actually, according to the PDF file, Ethernet 0/1, the one that we need. So let's do it. Ethernet 0/1 is the one that we need to configure. Let's go ahead and save it for now, just to cover our backs. Let's save this packet tracer lab. Okay, it's actually GNS3. It's a GNS3 lab. We already completed packet tracer previously, but now we are with GNS3. This is the real stuff. So it's taking some time to load the console, the CLI information. And let's wait patiently. Let me just close it and open it one more time to see if this time it loads both images for the router 1 and router 2. Let me just do console here and then console here. And let's wait. We are going to actually change the name of the devices because I think I forgot to change the names here. But it doesn't really matter. We know this one is router 1 and this one is router 2. So we're just going to change it here the following way. So config T, host name R1, and then we are going to do an end and WR, and then yes. Let's do the change here. Config T, host name R1, R2 actually, this is R2. And then after end, we do a WR. Okay, we're good now. So let's go with the lab step by step. The first thing we need to do is configure the IPv4 address in both routers. Look at that. It's the exact same IP address that we configure in Packet Tracer. Let's go ahead and do it. Let me go ahead and access it and copy this command so I can configure the IP address successfully for router 1. Let's do it. So config T, Ethernet 0/1. Maybe I am doing it backwards. It's actually Ethernet, and then it's interface. Important, right? We add the IP address there, and look at that. After doing a shoot down, it should be coming right back up. Should be starting and being up. Look at that. It is up. So logically and physically, the interface is up and running. Let me follow along with the lab. Now we have to do IPv6 enable. I don't see the IPv6 unicast routing here. I'm wondering if it doesn't really has to be done, this one. Let me run it just in case. IPv6 unicast. I think maybe this one is more like a real router and it doesn't really have it. Let me see. IPv6 unicast routing. It actually have it, the IPv6 unicast routing. Now we have to do the configuration of router 2. Let's go to router 2 and do the configuration for router 2 for now. Config T, IP interface Ethernet 0/1. Okay, we're good here. IP address. Do you guys remember the IP address for router 2? It's actually this one. Let me just copy the command. Okay, is the 180.30. So let's just remember that 192 and 168.180.30. And then mask is 255.255.255.254. Then not shoot. Then we can do the exit and then IPv6 unicast routing. Okay, we are good now. Let's start with the IPv6 configuration. Interface Ethernet 0/1. IPv6 address. We are back in router 1. We have to follow along with the configuration for router 1. So the IP address for router 1 will be this one. Let me just copy this one right here. Let's just copy everything and paste it there. What else? We have to do a no shoot down as well. No shoot down. And now we need to do an exit and a write. Then let's do an end and a write. Then let's do the copy running config, startup config, just to cover our backs. And there you go. Show IP interface brief. Show IPv6 interface brief. We are good. We are good. Now we need to do the following. We need to go to router 2 and configure the IPv6 there. Interface Ethernet 0/1. Let's go ahead and copy and paste the configuration for the IPv6 address that we need to add in router 2. We are in router 2, so we should be working alone in this router at this moment. I'm just going to copy and paste it there. And I need to do the no shoot down here, not shoot down. Okay, let me go ahead and do exit, or let's do end and then WR. Let's do a write here. I always do the write and then the copy running config, startup config, just to cover my back. But only with the write, we should be all good, all fine. So now let's do it different. This time we're going to do the ping test from router 1 to router 2. Let me just do something real quick to validate some information. Show IP interface brief. Okay, show IPv6 interface brief. Let's do a ping test from router 1 to the IPv4 address. This is the 31. We need to change it. Let's do a ping test first here. Hopefully, we will be able to get there. Look, a couple of packages got lost in the way with the first time. The second time, all good. Now, let's do a ping test to the IP address, IPv6 address of router 2. So with Control A, I do a ping, and with, actually, I don't remember to go to the end. It will be 2, the IP address for router 2. Look at that immediately, 100%. Amazing. So we have successfully completed connectivity between router 1 and router 2. And we tested the connectivity with some validation commands like show IPv6, show IPv6 interface brief, show IP interface brief. That actually shows us the IP addresses that we configure in the devices. Then with the ping command, we are able to validate that we have connectivity from router 1 to router 2. So we should be all good at this moment with this lab. This is the second lab that we have configured so far. Take care, boys and girls. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you around. Goodbye. Let me just end the recording for today.